I was stirring the miso broth when my phone buzzed across the counter with that sharp little hop it did whenever a message came through the family group chat. The kitchen window was cracked open, letting in the faint hum of traffic from Shinjuku and the far-off buzz of a train slipping under the city. It was supposed to be a calm night. The broth simmered, little bubbles breaking the surface, and I wiped my hands before checking the screen. 2 new messages. One from my sister, Hannah. One from my cousin, the cousin who always inserted herself into conversations like she was auditioning for a show that didn't exist. Hannah, we're in Tokyo. Nobody cares the night before my graduation dinner, the one celebration I'd actually planned for myself. I'd made the reservation weeks ago, checked it twice, even called yesterday to confirm they still had the corner table with the warm lighting. It wasn't much, but it was mine, and at 23, I'd learned not to ask for much from my family. About your little graduation dinner. Cousin Keiko. Actually, yeah, we're doing something else. You can come if you want, but don't make it awkward. I felt the words before I understood them, like someone sliding a cold coin into my hand, forcing me to feel its weight. The broth behind me hissed as it boiled too hard, foam pushing up the sides of the pot. I turned off the heat, but I didn't move away from the counter. I just stood there, staring down at the screen, rereading the messages as if the meaning might change if I blinked enough times. I wasn't surprised, not exactly. Hannah had a way of downplaying anything that wasn't about her, a talent she wore like jewelry. And Keiko, she followed wherever the loudest voice pointed. But the bluntness of it, the casual cruelty, hit differently tonight. Maybe because I'd allowed myself to hope they would show up. Maybe because I'd been telling myself things were getting better, that we were all getting older, that growing up meant growing respectful. The apartment felt smaller suddenly, the quiet wrapping around my shoulders in a way that made me acutely aware of myself, my breath, my heartbeat, the weight in my chest. I set the phone down slowly, afraid if I put it down too fast, something inside me might crack. I was supposed to be meeting them in 18 hours. A simple dinner. A simple acknowledgement that 4 years of studying graphic design while juggling 2 part-time jobs might matter to someone besides me. But my family had always lived in a world where my accomplishments were footnotes, something mentioned at the end of a conversation if there was time, the way people mention the weather when they can't think of anything else. I grabbed the ladle and stirred the broth again, even though the heat was off now. My hands needed movement. My mind needed something steady. My phone buzzed again, a single vibration this time, a private message from Hannah. Hannah, don't take it personally. It's just dinner. Not everything has to be a big deal, Ren. The casual dismissal slid under my skin. I tried to breathe through it, but it lodged there, sharp. I typed a response, deleted it, typed again, deleted again. Anything I wrote would sound defensive, and I hated the idea of giving her the satisfaction of thinking she'd gotten to me. When I finally stepped away from the stove, I wandered to the balcony, slid the door open, and stepped into the cool air. From the 10th floor, the city looked like an endless river of lights, each one moving, pulsing, living a life separate from mine. I leaned against the railing, letting the breeze cool the heat rising in my chest. Tokyo didn't care about my graduation dinner. That much was true. But Hannah wasn't Tokyo. She was my sister. The sister who used to teach me how to braid her hair, who cried the first time I got sick enough to go to the emergency room. The sister who drifted away slowly, almost gently, as though she didn't notice the distance growing or didn't care enough to close it. I heard a soft knock on my apartment door, too light to be a neighbor with a complaint. I stepped back inside, wiped my hands on my jeans, and opened it. It was May, my friend, my almost roommate at this point, the one constant in my life who'd never made me earn affection like it was something I owed her. "You cooked without me," she teased, lifting her eyebrows as she stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. I didn't answer immediately. She must have seen it in my face, because her playful expression softened. What happened? I didn't want to show her the messages. Not yet. I wanted to pretend I wasn't bothered, that it was just another stupid thing my family did, but the words pressed against my teeth until they came out. "They bailed," I said quietly. "On tomorrow." May didn't ask who they were. She knew. She closed the gap between us and rested her hand lightly on my arm. "I'm sorry, Ren. It's fine," I said automatically even though it wasn't. "They have their own plans. Doesn't mean they get to treat you like an afterthought." Her voice was low, controlled, the way it always got when she was holding back anger for my sake. I turned away, grabbing 2 bowls for the broth, pretending I wasn't unraveling a little. May stepped beside me, close enough that I could feel her watching me. "You're not fine," she said quietly. I didn't answer. Silence settled between us, but not the heavy kind, more like a blanket being lowered gently. Then, just as I ladled broth into the bowls, my phone buzzed again. I didn't want to look. I already knew the message wouldn't be kindness. I forced myself to glance at the screen anyway. A new message from a number I didn't recognize. "Unknown. Run. I need to talk to you before tomorrow. It's about Hannah. It's important." The broth sloshed over the edge of the bowl and hit the counter with a soft hiss. I didn't feel my hands shake until May took the ladle from me. "Who is it?" she asked. I don't know," I said, staring at the number. "But they know my name. Are you going to reply?" My stomach tightened, something cold threading through the frustration I'd been holding. I said slowly, "someone wants me to know something." I didn't know what it was yet. I only knew one thing with absolute clarity. Whatever I was about to hear, whatever truth was beginning to press against the edges of my life, it would change something I wouldn't be able to unchange. And for the first time that night, the air in my apartment felt like it was shifting. The number stayed pinned at the top of my screen all night, like a small, glowing eye watching me from the dark. I didn't respond. Not at first. I kept telling myself I'd deal with it in the morning, after sleep, after the sting of my sister's messages faded. But sleep didn't come easily. I lay awake under the faint hum of the air conditioning, staring at the ceiling while the city murmured below me. Beside me on the nightstand, my phone lit up once, then twice, then again. 3 messages, all from the same unknown number. None of them opened. By the time the sun rose, I'd given up on rest. The neon signs outside had blinked themselves into silence, and the sky was a soft blue-gray that matched the ache behind my eyes. I sat up, swung my legs over the edge of the bed, and let the cold floor ground me. Graduation day. A day I'd once imagined would feel bright, meaningful, maybe even a little cinematic. Now it just felt heavy. I padded into the kitchen where May was already awake, hair tied back, wearing one of my oversized shirts like it belonged to her. She was leaning against the counter, sipping from a mug that said, "Don't talk to me until I've had my feelings." She didn't look surprised to see me. "You didn't sleep," she said. "Not much. Because of the number. Because of everything." She nodded once, then slid the mug toward me. "Drink. You look like someone told you your apartment's haunted." I managed a small laugh and took the mug, wrapping my hands around the warmth. "Maybe it is." She watched me take a sip before asking, "Are you going to open the messages?" I looked at the phone in my hand. 3 new notifications. "Unknown. Please respond." "Unknown. I don't want to text this." "Unknown. It's about tonight." Something tightened in my chest. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I think I have to." But before I tapped the screen, something tugged at a memory, something buried deeper than last night's argument and the fresh sting of rejection. Something older. Me kneeling on the tatami floor of my childhood home, organizing the colored pencils Hannah had outgrown. Her voice behind me, sharp and irritated. "You're always in the way, Ren. Just stop trying so hard." Me at 12, standing at the edge of the playground while Hannah walked past with her friends, pretending not to see me. Me trying to convince myself that was normal. Me at 16, clutching my sketchbook after winning an art contest, waiting for her to congratulate me. She didn't even ask what I'd drawn. These weren't grand betrayals. They were small, quiet ones. Tiny cuts that didn't bleed until you counted how many there were. I'd learned to bear them the same way you bear cold weather, layering yourself in excuses until you convinced yourself you didn't feel anything at all. Now, the old draft in that foundation was back. A slight breeze moving through an old crack. Not enough to accuse, just enough to ache. I opened the first message. Before I could read it, May leaned in slightly, her voice gentle. "Whatever it is, you're not handling it alone." "Okay." I nodded once, swallowed and read, "Unknown. I'm a friend of someone who knows your sister. I heard something last night, something she said about your graduation dinner. I didn't think it was my place to tell you, but it crossed a line. And if I stay quiet, I'm complicit." My pulse kicked. Unknown. Check the reservation. Check who changed it. A cold rush moved up my spine. I stared at the screen as if it might rearrange itself into something less alarming. May saw the look on my face. Run! What did it say? I read it to her in a low voice. Her eyebrows pulled inward, slowly, like she was trying to control her reaction before it showed. She changed it, she asked. I don't know. I need to check. I grabbed my laptop from the couch, opened the reservation confirmation email and clicked the link. The page loaded slowly, like the universe was dragging its feet just long enough for me to reconsider. My name was still there. The restaurant was still there. But the time had changed. The table type had changed. And there was a new note attached. Party updated. Host request. Seat with group in private room. Additional guests. 7. Hannah's name was listed as an authorized guest. She'd edited it 12 hours ago. May leaned in, reading over my shoulder. She added 7 people? I nodded numbly. I only invited 3. Who are these people? Do you know them? No. I scrolled, my heartbeat loud enough that I barely heard the city outside. The added names were unfamiliar, but the last one made my stomach twist. Keiko. May exhaled through her teeth. She hijacked your dinner. My voice was quiet, even to my own ears. Why would she do that? The question pressed down on me with a slow, but undeniable weight. Because it wasn't just rude. It wasn't just inconsiderate. It was intentional. Calculated. A statement. I folded the laptop closed, hands trembling slightly. May reached out and steadied it. This isn't normal sibling stuff, she said. This is something else. I didn't respond. I couldn't. My mind was already replaying every moment with Hannah over the last year, the clipped comments, the forgotten calls, the subtle shifts in her tone, the way she kept me at arm's length while still pretending we were close enough to take photos together at family gatherings. I'd ignored the red flags because that's what I'd always done, smoothed over the cracks, convinced myself they weren't cracks at all. Now they were visible and widening. The phone buzzed again. Unknown. If you want to know the whole thing, meet me before the dinner. 5:30, in front of the old Tokonoma bar on Meiji Street. May read it at the same time I did. Are you going? I exhaled shakily. I don't know if I can. Run, she said firmly. You need answers. If she's been lying to you, if she's been planning something, you deserve to know. I nodded slowly, though the motion felt heavy, like my head was underwater. I'll go, I said finally. But even as I said it, something else was happening beneath the words, something neither of us addressed yet. A quiet thickening of the air, a shift in the room, because this wasn't just about a dinner anymore. It was about a truth humming beneath the floorboards of my life, getting louder, ready to break the surface. And I knew, with a clarity that chilled me, that whatever I found at 5:30 would tip the first domino. And nothing after that would look the same. I got to Meiji Street a little early, partly because the trains were running smooth for once, and partly because I couldn't sit still in my apartment without feeling like the walls were tilting. The sky was turning a late afternoon gold, stretching long shadows across the pavement. The old Tokonoma bar looked almost abandoned from the outside. Faded awning, cracked lanterns, a door that had been repainted too many times. It was the kind of place you walked past without noticing, which made it perfect for conversations people didn't want overheard. I stood there, hands in my pockets, watching groups drift past in loose clusters, shoppers, tourists, office workers half out of their ties. Nobody looked at me long enough to wonder why I was waiting. Tokyo had that gift. You could unravel completely in public and still maintain perfect anonymity. At 5:29, a woman approached. She looked about my sister's age, mid to late 20s, sharp bob haircut, slim black coat, the kind of posture that told you she wasn't used to apologizing for anything. She stopped a respectful distance from me. Ren, she asked. Yeah, she exhaled, relieved I hadn't backed out. I'm Arisa. We don't know each other. But I know Hannah. The sting of that name hit harder than it should have. How? We work at the same agency. She hesitated. Worked. A cold thread ran down my spine. You got fired? No. I quit. Yesterday. Her eyes flickered downward like she was debating something. Because of what happened. Because of what she said about you. The street noise faded a little. My pulse was louder. What did she say? Arisa glanced toward the bar's darkened windows. Can we step to the side? I don't want to do this in the open. We moved toward the alley just beside the bar. It wasn't a shady alley, just a narrow space lined with recycling bins and a bright vending machine humming steadily, its white glow reflecting off the walls. Arisa drew in a breath. Your sister's been planning something for tonight. Something involving her graduation dinner. That much I figured. But it's more, she said quietly. This wasn't a last-minute change. She's been talking about it for weeks. Not in a nice way. My jaw tightened. What does that mean? Arisa lifted her phone, scrolled, and then held it out for me to see. A recorded voice message. I recognized the voice, even before I pressed play. Hannah. Clear as if she were standing next to me. Hannah's voice came through, cold and casual. It'll be funny, right? We'll show up with everyone from the team. Rim will be so overwhelmed they'll probably cry. It'll be like, I don't know, a reality check. They're so dramatic about this little dinner thing. They need to learn their place. My breath stopped halfway in my chest. Then Keiko's voice chimed in, laughing. Honestly, it'll be good for them. They take everything so personally. It's not even a big accomplishment. Another voice, a coworker I didn't know, added. And you said you convinced the manager to move the table? That was smooth. Hannah again, chuckling. It's fine. Rin won't say anything. They never do. The recording stopped. For a moment, I couldn't feel my fingers. My own heartbeat was pulsing in my throat. I thought of all the tiny moments over the years when I'd swallowed discomfort, bit down on humiliation, told myself to be understanding. She counted on that, built her plan around it. Arisa lowered her phone. I didn't want to get involved. But listening to that, it felt wrong. Really wrong. Why tell me? My voice sounded distant. Because I've been on the receiving end of that kind of cruelty before. And nobody warned me. I won't do that to someone else. I nodded once, slowly. The air around me was cooling, but inside my chest something was heating, expanding. Not rage. Not yet. More like clarity. A single, precise line cutting through fog. What do they think is going to happen tonight? I asked. Arisa hesitated. They think you'll sit there and take it. They think they're the main characters. I let the words settle. She was right. That was exactly what they thought. And what time are they planning to show up? I asked. 6:30. All together. Loud. I checked my phone. 5:42. Plenty of time. I turned to Arisa. Can you send me that recording? Already did. Thank you. She nodded, then stepped back. I hope you do something with it. I didn't say I would. I didn't need to. The decision had already clicked into place, silent and certain. As she disappeared into the crowd, I stood for a long moment in the fading light, letting my mind settle around the truth. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't family miscommunication. This was humiliation by design, planned, rehearsed, sharpened. The part of me that used to fold, the part that used to explain away their behavior, stepped back and went quiet. The part of me that had been learning, slowly but surely, to choose myself, that part finally stood up. By the time I walked to the restaurant, I knew exactly what I was going to do. The host recognized my name instantly. Arin-san. The private room is... I want the original table, I said calmly. The one I reserved weeks ago. She blinked. But your sister... She's not hosting this event, I said. I am. The authority in my voice surprised both of us. She glanced at the screen, hesitated, then nodded. Of course. I'll move it back. And when a group of 8 arrives, I added, please let them know their reservation has been canceled and the host is no longer covering their bill. Her lips twitched, maybe amusement, maybe admiration. Noted. I sat at the corner table with the warm lighting, exactly as I'd imagined it. May arrived soon after, breathless from rushing. You look calm, she said, sliding into the seat across from me. Should I be scared? Not at all, I murmured, opening my phone. Just ready. I sent the recording into the family group chat. No explanation. No anger. Just the truth, in their own voices. Then I typed one message. Tonight was supposed to be mine. You tried to take it. Not anymore. At 6:31, I heard them. The loud chatter, the clacking heels, the exaggerated laughter. Then the voices cut abruptly when the host explained the change. A minute later, the door to the dining room slid open. Hannah stood there, stunned, face drained of color. Keiko hovered behind her, silent for once. I looked up slowly. "You're late," I said. Hannah opened her mouth, but the words tangled. She'd never expected a version of me who didn't fold. "We didn't mean," she started. "You did," I said gently. "And now everyone knows." Her eyes flicked to her phone, the recording playing, her own voice repeating the cruelty she'd once said so casually. She looked smaller then, not in a triumphant way, in a real way, like her facade had been peeled back. Her voice wavered. "I didn't think it would hurt you like that. You didn't think of me at all." The silence that followed wasn't loud. It was clean. It was honest. She didn't argue. She didn't defend herself. She just lowered her gaze and stepped back as the host quietly ushered them away. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. May reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "That," she whispered, "was perfect." Maybe it wasn't dramatic. Maybe it wasn't cinematic. But it was the moment I stopped being the background character in my own life. Later, when I walked home through the warm summer air, a strange calm settled inside me, like the city had exhaled with me. Like the quiet after a storm wasn't emptiness, but space. Space to grow. Space to breathe. If you've been watching this unfold with me, if you're someone who's ever been pushed to the edges of your own story, stick around. There's more ahead. More grounding. More rebuilding. More choosing yourself. So yeah, like, subscribe, stay close. The world gets quieter after you finally speak.